progressing points or is given to do all this kind of stuff. But it's a pretty cool study. Obviously, you can go check it out for yourself if you are curious about it. But many have wondered how the dog became the companion. When you start to think about the way people were living 29,000 years ago in the type of climate, you start to recognize that there's some signs there of what might have taken place. Last story today, we gotta end it on a sinkhole. Okay. You ever heard of a sinkhole? Oh, that's no big deal. That's just when the ground collapses beneath you. It's no big deal at all. A huge sinkhole, 66 feet deep and 21,500 square feet, opens in parking lot of Italian hospital disrupting COVID-19 care. No laughing matter. It actually didn't. No patients were harmed or anything like that, but it did disrupting because it kind of knocked down, I think their electricity. Maybe this was in Naples, in Italy. Naples, by the way, my favorite pizza spot.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Welcome to Robbi Tek, depending on where you are in the world. The greeting applies, I guess. On a technicality, Robbi Tek is under construction. What has occurred is dismal. It's definitely not user error, and it came very, very unexpectedly. So unfortunately, I'm stuck in a position where, I don't know, I felt like live streaming the fact that perhaps I could still provide a service of sort. I do have my outdated gaming rig in that fashion. That's still pretty decent, providing the stream currently. But my rendering work PC, on the other hand, has been made somewhat redundant at the moment and lame. At the worst possible time, of course, as I'm getting back into creating videos and whatnot for you all. Now, there is a chance that going through the warranty process, be it at the store or through AMD itself, because it's the 3900 XT that was approximately 5.5 months into use and old, should be under a 3-year warranty, is under a 3-year warranty. They like to say it's limited warranty, but from my understanding, it complies with all the checks and balances that are currently in place, at the very least from AMD's end of the spectrum, and it should in theory then be classified as a chip that has somehow died. And it's from no means do I say this, it's from my end of the spectrum and user error. The irony was, the other day I was simply doing a case transplant for the benefit, and again the irony, of the CPU itself, so that under rendering conditions it wouldn't get to a stage that while ambient temperatures are high during summer and they're cool today, again the irony, it will receive sufficient and adequate cooling, because it was getting hot. It doesn't mean it was overly hot as well. I'm a PC tech after all, and I know what's safe for a PC in that regards. And the specifications wise, it was within line. Unfortunately, during the case transfer, and we were using a really decently budget restraint case as well. that we put it into. That's actually linked in the description below. That video has just gone up. It's an in-depth teardown and a live unscripted work regarding the case itself, a review and overview, my impressions, decision-making process, what could and couldn't have been done better perhaps from my first impressions, and you know how it was in general. And also, yeah, so it's an interesting case. It's the H500 from MasterBox ARGB edition, and it's a step down from another case I have, which is the H500M, which has very decent thermals in it. And if at some stage I have both PCs on my desk, then they can borderline be side by side or on adjacent sides of the monitors, which can be centered essentially, and they can look very, very similar in fashion and sort of complement each other well. The annoyance is that the PCs that I had running in unison for dual streaming setup and content creation and be it everything like that, because that PC was also my backup PC for the time being until I have a NAS setup at the very least. They work together, and it's a real shame that there's still one more chance, but I have to. I've been mentally prepping myself for any worst case scenario, and that means having to, before my next minimal pay as well, have enough items sold off, hopefully at the right price in a marketplace that is restricted and overinflated. I'm going to bite the bullet and sell things for prices where I will undercut any competition but be reasonable in my approach as well. Various miscellaneous items, mainly PC tech and audio tech items, a few big ticket items which aren't necessarily big ticket, but just enough to get me to a figure that will enable me to get the either one decent part if it's available and in stock. This is partially why I'm doing the overkill on it. I can't trust the warranty process at the moment, because currently the store which sold me the 3900 XT chip are out of stock, and they don't have any 5000 5900 X chips as well, which is probably the most similar thing at the moment apart from the 3900X. I'm not taking a step down on the 3900X, definitely. And yes, something has to be arranged and work out. I am going to meet with them essentially. It's still night here, although morning. Today at some stage, after I have completely finished vetting exactly what I'm going to try to sell, because I've got a plan as well for either, if the chip is replaced, that's one thing. By AMD, I probably have to wait as well. So I've got a few plans in motion essentially as to what I am going to do. So I'm going to be here, and I'm happily discuss. I've got a system. I came up with an awesome system that would check all boxes as well regarding productivity, as well as potentially some gaming and stuff. Rocket Lake, if that's what it's called again, is just around the corner. There's the fact that AMD chips are very scarce in that department and area. So depending on what avenues are presented to myself, I need to have probably the amount of money to cover the chip, but also potentially I'd like to be in a position that I've got enough that if the chip is covered, that's another story, but enough to cover a chip, maybe even a motherboard, surprisingly. Not because this motherboard has failed that it was running in, but because it may be a different branded chip if nothing is available, and say the store honors the warranty and is aware that they will get a claim or a reclaim from AMD themselves. It'll do me a favor as well. If I present myself well enough, there's a chance that this could occur as well, because I haven't got the time to wait a month, let alone maybe 3, to have AMD eventually send something over. I don't want to have to deal with AMD being clearly potentially out of stock. You'd hope that they'd have some stock on hand for warranty claims, at the very least, a percentage that would be indicated from, say, chip failure or something like that. A rate of that would be a good amount that the company, as a company, for goodwill's sake, and that would have set aside. But in this climate and this day and age, they can't have chips aging and sitting on the shelves, especially Zen 2 when Zen 3's out, and everyone wants Zen 3 now, and vice versa. So essentially, I'm not too optimistic, and I don't want something like an equivalent, say a 5800X, because maybe the price might be similar, something like that, to what is that. A 3900XT was a well-binned chip as well, and it was a well-binned chip and had great silicon for the fact that it even was that bin well chip on top of that fact. So I'm really dismayed that it's gone. On a side note, this is something that I will neglect to mention, even though it's completely legitimate. Never overclocked, but optimized and also undervolted. And undervolted in a fashion that that it would operate and be a chip for me, that because I looked at the stock default voltages on the Zen 2 architecture, and I saw the boost clock, so I turned off the boost essentially. But when it boosted and spiked to the 4.7 and whatnot, I saw voltages hitting 1.48, and for me psychologically, that regardless of if it's for a split second, is too high, and I'm not using it for gaming related stuff, at least at this time, because I was essentially trying to consider getting a 3000 series graphics card for it, and then maybe consider something or that for my gaming PC, and putting the gaming PC GPU into the rendering PC, which was only running a 1050 Ti OC model from MSI, which is great, but something a bit more beefier is definitely warranted nowadays, especially when the technology exists, and a few generations later, it's time to have a computer of that caliber have something better in it as well. So yeah, to cut a long story short, I'm here for the next 2-3 hours sorting through my things. I may, depending on how much, because I am dismayed. I am, depending on my mood, probably going to talk out my thinking process and what I'm doing at the time. it's just a matter of vetting some more items as well. I've got definitely sale items in a box which are small and will only, the box in total will only net me $50 to $100 worth. I have a lot of retro PC tech which is in very good condition, and a couple of items that still need a proper deep cleaning. I've deep cleaned a lot of these items, sort of like Greg Salzabar has been deep cleaning certain items to that extent, but not, they were never at that dirtier level, but as thoroughly as possible to have all items presented as well as possible. And going to be doing the honest hustle, where, you know, so one of the first items I'm going to essentially, my process today is going to be to get all the items ready that are for sale. So I do have another small box of items which I need to potentially clean out as well, and double vet to whether they're going to go in the box of items to secure at least a $100 bill from all of that. Like even small things, you know, like audio cables and whatnot. But audio cables that generally speaking may cost between $20 to $40 to $50 each. Long audio cables and stuff like that, which I could easily then sell to an audio enthusiast for $10 to $15 to $20, so half that rate. You know, all gold plated and whatnot, very high caliber, very good quality stuff. On top of that, just from the basic end of the thing, there's miscellaneous computer parts of a small caliber, but there's even some vintage, say, soft toys and things like that, which I thought could go towards collectors and whatnot. Apart from that, which I'm not, which don't fancy me as much, but I have, you know, so I'm going all out. What you essentially see is almost everything I have available at my disposal that I'm willing to part with, and even with that said, that's to get something to be able to create content with effectively. The annoyance is some of these items would have helped me create content. So for example, a lot of DDR1 and 2 RAM is sort of useless, but the ones that I can make some money off, still maybe $30 or $40 or $50, are the pedigree cream of the crop modules of that era, which anyone wanting to still overclock items and say get, you know, high scores or utilize effectively or build dream retro PC setups today, and that I'm hoping will be the ones that buy the items and see the value in them. Because yeah, that stuff, like for example, original Corsair Dominator RAM, Crucial Ballistics RAM on an older scale and whatnot. So maybe those RAM modules will net me, as opposed to say $5 for 4 modules or something, you know, probably it's worth its weight in gold or something. Get me something that is at least a couple of bills worth in total there as well. Then on top of that, I've got even like a pristine restored compact Armada, which someone could boot up and say effectively go, how's this operate in 2021 sort of content, or something I was considering doing, things in restoration and e-salvage was a passion of mine where e-salvage involves salvaging the items for learning and whatnot, and understanding better our past and history. And you know, some of these items are in such great condition that they could be warranted as the items which could be which could be placed, say, in a museum or something. You know what I mean? Not perfect in use, but restored to the degree that, you know, they even look good in regards to where they've been and come from, and the condition they're currently in. Obviously, everything's going to be sold on an honesty basis as well. I don't like dealing with negative feedback. It affects. I don't need that stigma attached with myself regarding sales at the very least. And yeah, it's just annoying because there's a couple of older gigabyte boards which have really good BIOSes set up as well, and they're set up for overclocking, say, a range of 775 socketed chips I have, that I could get from them again another $20 to $50 at the very least. On eBay, if I had more time and more patience, some of these items can go for a lot more. I've got an X58 motherboard, which on eBay can go between $150 and $180, and it seems to be realistically in the market, on Marketplace and the surrounds, I'll probably only manage to get $100, but I'm going to sell that, say, as a combo, as a PC combo with enough RAM that's DDR3, approximately about 18 gigabytes in a tri-channel configuration, which I'll not necessarily have set up for the customer, but at least moduled in, pictured, ready to rock and roll with, and moduled in the right spots in case people are a little bit, you know, they'll probably, you know, if they're smart, they check themselves, but I wouldn't recommend not doing so. But I'll do them a little solid and mention the fact that it's set up, the RAM set up in the way you configure it and want to have it, because people can get confused with that sort of thing, especially if they're first system time builders and that. And I don't need to troubleshoot some customers bought items off me in regards to this sort of aspect. Obviously, if it was a PC build that I had supplied, then I'll provide some assurance that if there was an issue with the build, I would have, at the very least, established whether it was from my end or theirs and provide adequate response to that, because I am also if work permits, attempting to be a sole trader in the industry for the time being, also on the side, and do custom PC builds and whatnot. But yeah, it's just really annoying. So there's a camera angle underneath me, and that's got the compact Armada. So I've got everything up here, bar B, 1, 2, 3. The top side motherboards all perhaps need a bit more of a polish in some way, shape or form before the photos are made. And apart from that, there's a couple of items over here which I need to sort through as well. But then I'm going to essentially, where that position is there, make all the photos, or the majority of the photos of the items that I'm going to utilize, and do it all in succession, so that then it leaves me the write-up of and description and potentially some research regarding the top market value and the current market value of said items that I can realistically get sold in the next week to week and a quarter, because I want to have a PC going and all the parts for that build if necessary, that I will require within a week and a half's time tops. Yeah, I can't personally wait any longer than that. So otherwise I'll go insane, frankly. So on a side note, apart from that, there's also the write-up. I'm not gonna put you guys through that process. It's more a it's a little bit more me here concentrating rather than being able to talk out loud. And at any stage, I am willing to have a discussion on any topics related, especially maybe what I'm considering getting if I don't have the option of a chip instantaneously, what I'm going to do. If the chip takes time, for example, that's why I need that extra cash, and I'll get something now and I'll off-sell the chip later on. Perhaps keep the motherboard for troubleshooting other people's computers and whatnot to verify what exactly is needing replacement. I do need an AMD B550 or 570 in regards to that board, so that I might keep. But after getting the chip back, probably have to off-sell it if I've got a PC since then, which would then annoyingly put a bit of cash back in the kitty that's been splurged as a result to get a PC sooner rather than later. But I won't get the chance and luxury of, say, buying these items back in that regards, which is the annoyance. But it just feels like in this climate and that there's going to definitely be more issues than usual, generally speaking, with warranty. If everything was to go smooth as butter anyway, because they're going to have to definitely source a chip from somewhere if they honour their end of the bargain in that regards. So yeah, I'm not my usual chirpy self, or if you don't watch my full content, what might seem as egocentric self, or definitely not egocentric. Always justify my demeanor and how I'm acting in relation to what content I'm providing. Yeah, either way, I'd probably say you don't have to necessarily like today's stream. You're welcome to join me and keep me myself company while I go through this stuff. The sun's literally just coming up now, so I'm going to get into things. And hopefully within a few hours, all the items will be filed electronically, and then I can start the process. Then I'll head down to the shop, find out my options, no, I'll probably, depending on how much time I have. Hey mate, Alan, how you going? What do you need help with, buddy? Welcome to the stream, by the way. I tell you what, we all need help at some stage in our lives. If it's PC tech related, I might be able to, on the spot, help troubleshoot you as well. Today, on the other hand, you can't see a Wi-Fi option in Windows 10. Yeah, so at the very least, restarting your computer might help. Double check. Have you recently installed a Wi-Fi router? Have you reset anything? Some more information I'll probably need. You don't have a Wi-Fi adapter. Yeah, so is this on a laptop or is this on a desktop PC? Is it a new PC? I surprisingly have two Wi-Fi adapters that I'm going to be selling off. A desktop PC. Yeah, so there is, if you don't have a Wi-Fi adapter, then definitely one for, if it's a new desktop PC, awesome, then it'll probably have a PCIe slot, and that PCIe slot is that small little slot that's around where your graphics card would be. And one of those, generally speaking, they'll cost you between $10 to $30 depending on where you are in the world. Very, very cheap. Pretty much plug and play. Terrific nowadays. So you should have the ability to be able to purchase one of these from a shop. And one of these items should definitely be in stock. And essentially all you'll do is just plug it in. The adapter, well, it's a piece of hardware, so for example, this here is a Wi-Fi adapter. It's an older model for an older PC, and you can't necessarily download that first, so you definitely need the hardware. And if you already have one of these with antenna, for example, coming out the back of your PC, if you've got antennae or some form of antennae, then you know you've got one of these in your PC. So if you don't, then you'll need to buy one of these and install it in that fashion. It's very simple. You can just look up the specific model and just type in installation process, but it's very simple. You just plug it in, and when you turn on your computer again, Windows should be smart enough to recognize that the device has been connected. You may though need to enable the device also in your BIOS as well, but it's generally a plug and play regarding these. And Windows is smart enough to recognize and install any applicable drivers necessary, so you should be fine, and it doesn't cost much. Okay, so I'd say approximately $20 maximum, regardless of where you are in the world, is an adequate Wi-Fi adapter. Yeah, so I hope that helps, Alan, and at least steers you in the right direction. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to definitely get to work. So yeah, very, very subdued, like I said today. I'm just essentially waking up as well, and I need to wake up my mind also, but so much so because today I think I have to be more artistic. I think artistic because I have to make the photos of this essentially, and not necessarily think, be it slow pattern for it or technical for it. Yeah, you know, it'll be odd though if today, for a change, I get more viewership and more interaction than usual live streams. Then all of this might just have to wait. but realistically speaking, I've got a deadline as well, so and that's that I have to be somewhere within the next 4 to 5 hours. So I'll probably be streaming for a maximum of 2 or 3 hours, doing everything as mentioned earlier. And yeah, so let's get into it, I guess. It's probably more one of those streams that that you can sort of like you watch people study and whatnot, you know, like some of those streams where you watch people study, for example, they literally don't even talk. It's just more relaxation purposes. So I'm used to I'm used to streaming a lot as well when I used to game a lot on the big blue. YouTube doesn't like it when you mention the name, but all the socials are up in the top as well, the top bar, and yeah, so yeah, I'm used to the fact that of the interaction, but the difference is you're, say, more focused on the game, and off to the side you've got chat, so it's a bit more intimate when you're addressing. Here on the other hand, I'm going to have my back to a lot of the chat, and the chat with YouTube I can't at the moment at least increase in size, the chat text. So because I'm used to OBS pop-outs specifically associated from, like, say, stream labels and whatnot, and then linked into OBS Studio Standard, and you can increase the text size there, so you can literally have a landscape like the Dell over here in portrait mode, and just dedicated to a chat. As maximum as possible, depending on how far away you are from the monitor and where you're positioning yourself, so you're always aware if someone's got a query or something, or in essence talking with you. But gaming related, it's a different story, because they're there to watch you essentially kick ass if you're good or whatnot. So there's you know, in between FPS matches and things like that, there's a power down, a chat time, and then you're back into an interaction sort of a process. Here, if I start talking to people directly, in today's stream at least, I'll never get this work done. So there's going to be a power down and intermittence as well, and I'll deal with people in that regard. So yeah, follow, like, and or subscribe. All socials again are above and in the description below. I appreciate all the support. I've got plenty of videos that I've started uploading. Editing wise, my production value is starting to increase as well, and become a lot more refined. I do like doing long videos as well as short, to be as comprehensive as possible and say all the stuff that is neglected and not said. And I hold myself at an integral level to a higher standard and values, which I hope filter through towards other people in the industry who I'm debating. That's in a series as well that I've started, that's called Unboxing the IT Industry, I believe, from memory. And yeah, it's just to warm up the first show to that. But that's going to be interesting because there's a plan to that, and a mythology. So yeah. Anyways, I've got also someone I don't normally watch. I was going to call him Lou Lovely, but the fella from Unbox Therapy, and he's got some decent stuff to chat about as well. He provides you with some tech related stuff in a good light and a good spiel. So yeah, I'm essentially, it's either that or some music. The music, on the other hand, isn't the best. YouTube is very relentless with shutting you down with copyright infringed music, which is understandable. So DCMA related music that doesn't copyright infringe and whatnot, generally speaking, isn't of the higher caliber that you can have it pronounced in your stream as part of it. Only generally speaking, it's background or clips and bits and bobs used in video edits and whatnot, if you're lucky to find a good one. So I want to crank that up a little bit, and I guess I'm more a PC desktop type of guy. I shy away from Apple. PC Master Race after all. And also currently, personally speaking, I don't generally watch as much Android content as well, and related gadgetry. It's not that I don't understand it, it's that once I have a telephone, I generally use it for a number of years. I don't look at the next greatest new thing that's continuously out regarding that, as opposed to videos on hardware and tech related stuff and the understanding of what that is, because that's my job essentially as well. So that's my interest and my passion. So he's a bit of a change because he talks about everything and sometimes weird things. So it gives me the luxury of sometimes chiming out at a time where I can't necessarily produce that content, and the last thing I would really want to do is be thinking about it while I'm taking potential content that is related to that and selling it off so that I can produce content that's like that. It's hypocritical in a way, but that's my current financial situation. I'm trying to get out of the red and back into the black again. It's difficult in a climate where it's a competitive industry, and I'm also trying to, So that's me in a nutshell currently, without being on show and on display. So it's a bit more personal today as well, and I get personal streams. Like I said, I'll mention our Twitch. We had the you have the luxury of just chatting as well, and doing streams like that. So I was always a stickler for some of those just chatters to actually be specifically in the they'd be just chatting and painting and stuff. It's like, well, get out of just chatting and go on to painting. Same with like science and technology, they've got something similar there as well. On the other hand, today's justification for the stream, I wasn't 100% sure, but science and technology still makes sense as a topic, because everything is technology based that I'm selling off in that case. Venting can talk about, can discuss, and yeah. So a moment's further ado. I might pause this.
Screwing in the drywall, hammering just to build the facility. Then he's also going to be on the assembly line when the smartphones are back. Of course. And he did go visit that Texas plant where they were building Mac Pros in Austin, where Apple was building Mac Pros, one of the few products they assemble in the United States. It appears to be
I
hard
think
to do.
I can barely hear that, but the gain on the mic, which is over here, according to me, as opposed to the speakers which are over there, because I haven't got desktop sound on because I didn't feel like being encumbered with the headphones and whatnot. is very
There's not
high,
a
so
tremendous amount
you
of
guys can
detail
probably
right
hear
now,
that as
but we've
clearly
seen how
as
this
I
works in
can,
India.
even though the positioning
Now,
of the
obviously,
mic.
India, a much
So
different economy than the United
hopefully
States.
YouTube doesn't
But
have
you
an
have to
issue with
presume
the
that
audio
it could have some
aspect
sort
of
of
that
input
being
that it
played,
enticed companies.
and
I think he would love to
potentially
entice the
discuss
Taiwanese companies.
as
Would love
relevant
to
topic
entice the
material
cons.
if you guys aren't
Get a few
too
cons over
interested
here.
in
And I'll take any con.
interrupting
give you
me
this
too
tax
much,
break real
because
quick.
it's definitely going to be a
The
power
India version
session
of it, I
of a
believe
couple
they're
hours of
giving
work
between
here,
4 and
which I'm
6%
about to
back
begin.
For any revenue generated from companies that were willing to move their operations there. So everyone's competing, for the manufacturing. Everybody wants this manufacturing now. Manufacturing comes with jobs, and people want jobs, so U.S. included.
Yeah, so manufacturing is.
Speaking of the India piece, Asia's richest man, Mukesh
it
Ambani,
includes
he is on a shopping
fabs,
spree now.
I believe,
So
and the ability to
talked a lot
produce
about,
chips. So I'm into
selling things, selling
the business
percentages,
aspects of things
stakes
as
in
well
his various
regarding,
companies, Reliance,
PC
Geo,
tech.
I think this says here,
Makes
Geo
sense.
has
I have a lot
now,
of opinions.
what did they sell, like 22% of the company or
which
something? Should I get this right?
Many people that I interact with
stake in
find
Geo
interesting,
So you got
intriguing,
Google,
even,
Facebook.
and
It's been a
downright justifiable
spree, and now
that
it's a
perhaps
shopping spree.
industry
You take
should
that money,
move in
here's what
those
you do.
directions.
Let me explain.
Unfortunately, corporations dictate what
Opportunity in
occurs
India
and how
right
it
now.
occurs
Because
as
things
well.
are still relatively
And
cheap in India. You could turn around
generally
and take those
speaking, when
billions of
they're
dollars, purchase a bunch of millions
upheld
of
by
dollars.
their
See,
shareholders
you
and
break up those
dividends
billions
and
into little
producing
sections
cash
that are millions.
to
And then
remain
you go around,
strong
you see
in
who
the
all your
share
competitors
market,
are in all the various
then
marketplaces. I mean, with him now, he's talking
even the smart
pharmaceuticals,
options
he's
like
talking,
diversifying to a
let me just
degree
brief. I mean,
and
it's so vast and wow. Let me. Can I?
yeah, it
do
doesn't
mine? I
always
can read a
work,
few.
but we
A
won't get into the
lingerie
politics
company,
of things too much.
an online furniture company. Do you see how this works, Will? You take the billions you get in investment from the West, and then you buy local companies that are thriving or on that cusp at that early stage. Now you attempt to take those companies to the next level through your purchasing, because you can plug them into all your networks for growth. But you just took your billions and you bought for millions.
Yeah.
That's the part I like. 33 billion can buy you a ton of $100 million companies.
Yeah.
Expand your network.
Oh yeah.
So whenever you're ready, Will, you just let me know. We'll do the same thing.
All right. For sure.
We'll sell for billions and buy for millions. The 63-year-old tycoon is seeking to widen his retail footprint in a market that's become a hotspot for global giants such as Amazon, as well as the local rivals, all chasing a billion-plus consumers. The business mogul last month outlined plans to rope in investors for his Reliance Retail Limited days after selling a combined 33% stake in Geo Platforms. They're going to pay $160 million for Zivam, which is a furniture company. Oh no, Zivam is the pharmaceutical company, I think. Oh no, NetMeds is the pharmaceutical company. That's $120 million. What does Zivam do? They're the lingerie company. So 160 for the lingerie company, 120 for the pharmaceutical company, and 30 million for the furniture company. You're gonna have a play everywhere.
We'll pause that. Unfortunately, anything coming from Lou is now outdated by almost a year's time, so it's outdated news as well. But maybe we'll get a good vine pertaining to PC tech that we can discuss. For example, Tech Deals has come out with RDX 2080 versus RDX 3080 at 1440p. So the 3080, for example, has GDDR6X RAM and one of the only cards as well as the 3090 that does. So the 2080, on the other hand, has GDDR6 basic RAM. So there is a difference there. Apart from that, more refinement in the RTX structuring and whatnot, and CUDA cores. Definitely something to look at. What is more interesting would be the comparability between any item that's still got GDDR6 RAM, so your 3070s or below, to those cards of the 2000 series then. And if RTX isn't a requirement, you have to then consider whether the amount that's been commanded for those cards even is worth it if you can get yourself a 2001 for a more reasonable price. The performance has to be then considered more effectively as well. So yeah, it's like I sort of as I watch this, I already know what's going on and understand it. So unless it's completely brand new to me, I've got an opinion as well, and I go head to head with people, especially when I hear misleading advice given. It gets me hot under the collar, and or even borderline falsified advice that is just wrong. Because video content providers have a duty of care. If they were doctors, if they were providing, say, medical advice, then there'd have to be disclaimers of sort. And because PC tech is big business, and people who nowadays buying computers are borderline spending enough money to buy themselves a second-hand car and whatnot. It's sort of just as important, I think, to be accurate, concise, diligent in your approach if necessary, hold yourself to an integral value that is part of yourself, not fake news. That's why I get passionate. Over a year ago now, in one of my first comeback videos from another channel, which I brought forward here, which has spurred that series to begin with. And I say it on the basic and without any sugarcoating. Essentially, I mentioned that if you don't know how to handle the situation by saying all the information, because it may affect the sale, or you're not as transparent as you can because of other aspects, and that'll affect your viewer counts, then don't say anything, don't mislead, simple as that. And there's a lot. I'll shed light through the series. This is like a hardcore series, which might get me some negative backlash, but I'll shed light and justify it the whole way through, and my points in specific examples which have been taken, because the greed out of some video content providers means that they don't even take down their old footage because they're still receiving revenue from it. And it's easy to call them out, especially as they refine their approach and start to not be that way. It generally happens once they're established and whatnot. But yeah, there are certain industry standards which are at play, which are very demeaning to myself, as if I'm associated with that once it's made public that, it's the case, and it's obvious as day that this is occurring on that level. I was out of PC tech for a long time, and I came back, and because of that, I'm shocked as I started to watch everything, because I'm like, what's going on here? This is not right. That's wrong information completely. Just on a side note, you look at the Verge video, and that young fella, that young man who was part of the Verge, built that PC. To be brutally honest, he did a pretty decent job. It wasn't a bad crack at it. It's just everyone decided to jump on him at the same time. Because of something like that, I feel like they're open fodder, and it'd be hypocritical if people couldn't jump on them. And literally, one of the people I might even tackle, without naming names, is doing too many spoilers right now, is a person that out of the first second of watching him, he corrected him. By correcting him, he said what he said was wrong, but he actually made a mistake in his correction as well. So it was quite humorous to me, because I'm like, hang on a minute, you're wrong as well though. That's not how it works exactly. And you probably want to explain it this way to show that you understand it, not just sort of go, no, you know what I mean? And I'm going to get critical of people in that regards, because they pretty much broke this guy's career before it had begun. And he got a lot of, negative backlash. I believe he was a streamer of sorts as well. And yeah, people just drove him out of town, and he definitely won't be able to get a job in the industry again very easily, from my understanding. If he's not employed by The Verge still in that regards, in some way, shape or form, probably not going to be in front of the camera anytime soon, because of that fiasco. And that's, yeah. You watch other people, and they've got, for example, people part of their groups essentially, which I watch them and they struggle as well with their build, because it's one of their first builds, but they don't articulate it as well. But I can see the novice in them, and the mistakes they're making. They're just not mentioning, and they've literally got someone in their ear telling them what to do as well, as opposed to also the professionals neglecting certain information and whatnot, and being hypocritical because of the fact that they're perceived to be transparent, but in actual fact they've got their agendas as well, and their sponsors and whatnot also, and how they have to approach. And all content creators are different in some way, shape or form, and they have different reasonings to align themselves in a way that, when a manner of speaking, they may promote certain products over others, and they won't necessarily give you all the information if they're intelligent as to why that product might be a better option, as opposed to outright lie about specs as well and things like that to get you to buy products. Even things like analysis videos of people as basic as doing 1080p comparison videos and whatnot for cards to see how they perform. Again, you're watching them and you're thinking this is Word, but coming from someone who's got a higher production value, say, than I have, but the difference is the information they're providing isn't accurate depiction of what you'd be getting at home, based on the same performance, or it's not the right way of going about it. Like a basic example was something similar, something I saw similar, which was a 3070 card being utilized and showcased how it performed in 1080p with an underwhelming CPU, where in 1080p the CPU's what's taking the brunt of the workload. It's, if you wanted to compare how that 3070 performs as opposed to other 3070s, and you wanted to, in that case, knock, for example, Dell computers for their options and what they do with their products, and they could, you know what I mean, then you want to show it operating in 1440p and or 4K to compare to another 3070 that's an AIB or something that might be perceived as a better option, as opposed to in 1080p. And the majority, if not all the benchmarking was done in 1080p with that card, which just I didn't understand, because completely reliant 1080p gaming is on the CPU more so. So you don't get to see the bottleneck that occurs on the GPU and the constraints, and it doesn't reflect in the frames that were provided. But because it's so polished, it's because, for example, this fella, I believe, is more an editor coming into the industry, and an editor and a renderer / in that regards professional first, and second is PC tech, means that it looks like everything is, because he can articulate himself well enough, it looks like it's completely legit, and you would believe it if you didn't understand it, unless you cross-reference your stuff and get a deeper understanding and a broader range of spectrum to make sure you're making that accurate and wise decision. Because again, it's big money for us as consumers as well nowadays, especially with the price rises and whatnot that have occurred for many reasons and many justifications, be them again ill-advised or not, or ill reasoning or not, or justified or not, or just too agreed, you know. So yeah, anyway, the good thing about a live stream, especially when I am restrained, dismayed and not tired and finally woken up, is you can see the fact that it might not be as polished, but like everything's there, everything's here, and being live, it's more difficult to fake it as well, because you're on the spot essentially. So yeah, being refined and, you know, coming from a video editing background in some cases, in a few people's eyes I've noticed, you can be perceived to be a professional, but you can be brought in and elevated quicker as a result as well, which is sort of unfair to the old YouTube that I know as well, where there was a lot more lower end content providers. When I used to cross-reference my stuff, I cross-reference it through a source. Now you've got a lot of these very popular, I'm not saying they're bad because I enjoy watching a lot of their content as well, but very popular streamers that break your vine, you've got nothing else to watch, and it suffocates the ability for new content providers to exist on a level where there was a lot more, where it wasn't as big business in that sense in certain sectors, where people just dominate now and no one watches anything else because there's only so much time you have. So yeah, it was a different way of searching as well back then, and this is only going 4 or 5 years, and then the other jump before that change was about 10 years in YouTube's history, sort of thing. So yeah, something I don't recommend is vaping around your computer. I generally, when I do, I've got a fan going directly into me and out the window, takes the vape out rather than towards the PC intake. I don't care what people say. I've cleaned I've cleaned as well all different kinds of PCs and whatnot, and I know the damage the vape can do, so I'm always very vigilant. But unfortunately, I'm too weak to get off the reliance on it, and sometimes it's definitely not practical. So The luxury I have is hiding things like this, in generally speaking, unless it's a live stream, then, unless I continuously, depending on how long that stream is, take adequate breaks, you don't conceal it, but it's not a thing that I need to conceal in that sense. On a side note, I remember Twitch at one stage had a requirement for a streamer to be, I believe, vetted for affiliation or partnership. You're required to do a 24-hour stream. Their policy on streams as well was, at the time, I believe you couldn't leave the stream for longer than 10 minutes or something. You have to be live, and imagine someone streaming for 24 hours as a requirement, or on the other note, imagine someone working for 24 hours and only getting a 10-minute break or something like that. That in any industry as a standard, in any sort of decent country at the very least, is extremely frowned upon, let alone illegal. And yeah, since then I believe Twitch has gotten rid of that requirement, but it's something that if I'm used to also having the ability of streaming between 8 to 24 hours at times, I'm of the notion that at some stage I'll probably put on some music, and put on the be right back sign, and take a 10-15 minute break. The annoyance is that if you're going for 8 hours, you're effectively at work, if you're working, entitled to a half-hour break or maybe an hour break. When you're streaming, and you're required to stream a set amount of times or a set amount of hours, then you should be entitled to that break and not constitute that of a breakage of a stream or regulatory requirements in the compliance of that type of streaming platform. So that's something else that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm weird. I'm weird though. This type of stream is very, very, if I'm doing a live build, I do it and conduct myself sort of like Kerry Holtzman does, except I omit some of the bullshit he says regarding certain shit and be a lot more straightforward and pleasant, and not use the fact that not give off the incentive that I'm helping everyone, while also at the same time saying it's my business, I can't help everyone. Which is what it does. It's very funny at times, if you can be amused by it. At other times it irritates me, and other times I learn some new things from him because I can't always be troubleshooting a new build or something and or get the same problem out, but that way of thinking exists in me that he possesses, not necessarily his approach to how he treats his customers and whatnot, but the way of analysis to troubleshoot a problem. I can break it down, and when I'm silent, that's one thing. When I'm talking, it's another thing, because if I'm doing a stream, I'd like to also do live build streams, which are very, very in-depth regarding part analysis at the beginning, to the degree that I'm borderline, if I'm set up with the cameras well enough, able to extract that stream to a how to build stream as well, how to build video as a result. So a lot of that's content from now on, if I just discipline myself enough and don't have to take too many breaks by conducting all that work into a 3 or 4 hour period, which means for the stream there'll only be a 10-minute intermission of sorts. then I can do those streams in conjunction with a lot of the video footage I provide, and that would then reiterate that whatever I'm saying is backed up through experience, as well as you can be rest assured that it is genuine as well, because I'm not masking behind professional camera work or whatnot, or whatever it may be in that regards. I'm not envious of those streamers, especially those ones I'm referring to because of how they are. But yeah, success is an interesting topic, where hopefully the YouTube algorithm will one day favor myself as well and allow me to get some subscribers and or followers and whatnot. So if this is making sense and you're listening in the background, then you probably get me already. So hit that subscribe button, because and or like or follow or share, even depending on the socials that you're part of. On FB, I've got a sister site that mirrors this. Generally speaking, I'm trying to make the content exclusive on YouTube though, so that but anything written can go there as well. Especially that I've started up a Facebook group page, which is called PC Builds and Hardware. So PC Hardware and Builds, I beg your pardon. I changed the title about 15 times within the first hour, so it's just a matter of implementing it into my own brain. But essentially it's regarding things from build advice, help with picking parts, to showcasing your own builds and whatnot, and or anything PC tech, meme related, or funny stuff that's on topic, and news as well, and people's opinions of stuff and such. And I'm trying to develop a community where the answers given are smart, with people with a wealth of knowledge. Myself, because I myself need to get more contacts in the industry, friends and whatnot as well, especially with similar interests, and it gives me the luxury then of investing my time instead of in other people's areas. I've realized I can be an admin and vet and be in a position that allows for a better community to flourish. Because there are always disclaimers, treat people nicely and all this, but some of the rhetoric I hear coming from IT specialists is just nonsense, and it's like, please don't advise that to that person when they're here for genuine help, or they just take the piss out of people, and it's a weird state of affairs, because on the basic end you should treat people the way you want to be treated, and that's it. Yeah. So, cut a long story short, where does it tell me how long I've been streaming for? I've got my own software, so it's been over an hour now. I was thinking I'd chat with everyone for about an hour's time, and I'll conclude with a bit of a chat as well. But yeah, now it's just a matter of I guess cleaning some items, God, this is going to be hectic. I don't want to do this, guys. I was so in the focus. If you saw the fact that I was without anything, I was releasing content 2 or 3 times a week, and getting really refined, and I'd already editing wise started to get so much more efficient and or more comprehensive, and learning new techniques and things like that, and just so excited that I was expecting for the next couple of days to, which I had some spare, more time to knuckle out 2 or 3 ideas for videos that didn't require me, because as a struggling new content provider, I don't have the luxury of the newest and greatest hardware at my disposal, even though I can understand it as much and explain it as well. But you know, get some cheaper items which are really good, or talk about budget builds and or showcase that, or have my ideas for PC news and being able to display it in a professional manner as well. You know, sort of a blog style where I'd be direct at the camera, but the camera would be focused, have the mic professionally set up for that sort of an environment, and maybe do something like, I think his name is Gamer Meld. But yeah, you know, it'll come with time. I'm thinking on a side note, if I might get a job, if I can, if there's a job available in IT retail, then just at a store, then I will get maybe the luxury of going, boss, can I borrow some items, and I by then will be of a professional caliber in my approach, a bit more so as well, that I can have the items which are unboxed and bring them back over the weekend or the next day, and drop the name bomb of the company as a result, that sponsored this video, and be appreciative of the lending of the item as opposed to, you know, getting them for free or whatnot. And that might give me the trajectory as well to be able to produce that content on demand as well that a lot of people are after, which is new hardware reviews, as well as all the other stuff, you know. So yeah, because to be honest, that's what interests a lot of people the most in that sector. But it's what interests me, is the innovation in the industry, especially when it's not stagnant. And we've had so much innovation in the last year and a half or so, especially. Unfortunately, it's going to stagnate again. But we won't get into the politics too deeply of that, because it's another half-hour basic undertone of my viewpoint before the conversation can actually let fly in regards to it in a discussion format, because you have to understand each service perspective first as well before you discuss it, maybe even feverishly. Actually, I just realized I should have had, no, I can't do that, because I could have the separate camera. It's very simple to just activate it as the, we're watching this video right now, you're watching it with me, but I believe YouTube doesn't allow for that, except audio clipettes in a scene that's then discussed as in relation to that. It can't be pronounced as your stuff. If I'm not monetizing things and it's not too much of an issue, it might be a loophole as well, but the way I did it with Hardware Unbox, I believe I linked them as well, and it's done in a legitimate fashion, because essentially putting themselves in the public eye, it's open source and open cannon fodder, but you can't, you know, point off their shit as your own, you know what I mean, or have it as the forefront without our discussion occurring at the very least, or whatever it may be in that sense, you know. Like, essentially I'm reviewing, on a technicality as well, is I'm reviewing all the content at once and giving my opinion and spiel on it. So yeah, I've just grown my beard for the first time, but it's getting a bit fluffy on the sides. I'm gonna have to trim it. I have never had a professional beard trim in my life. I think I might, if I get a spare $10 or $15, just go for a trim there and turn into a Viking, because I'll probably shave my head next. It's the middle of summer after all, and the next hot day I'm just gonna be like, stuff it. You know, I can't keep wearing a hat all the time as well, because the majority of your heat escapes through the top of your head and the bottom of your soles. So it's always, you know, yeah. Hence the hair and the shoes half the time. But oh, he just goes straight into the tech deal. I mean, straight into the benchmarking without. That's really abnormal. Corsair A500 tower cooler. That could be interesting. Deal for $49. I'll tell you what, there was an Amazon tower cooler, J's 2 cents. Regardless of if his AIO application that he was comparing it to was not mounted properly, like you mentioned, there is a chance, regardless, the performance that was being produced on the loop cycle of an AVX Cinebench R20 load under the CPU that he had and how it was running was awesome for the value of that product, which on Amazon essentially sold out. I for example watched that and I was like, straight away, I'm like, I saw it beforehand, and I was like, I'm going to purchase that as a stopgap for this PC if in fact I go down, say, an opposing route to AMD and get an Intel where I don't have, at the very least, a 1200 socket or something like that if need be, which is what you'd suggest. But if you gave off all the information instead of a 6 to 10 minute entertainment program, then you would also find out that it's the same socket as any other previous cooler in that regards, regarding 1155 socket placement. The difference is the chip itself and its orientation is just flipped, but the socket's the same. So, but it's a really good cooler for approximately, it was like $30 or something American. It's insane. Like supposedly Jay was suggesting that it was of Noctua standard in form when he was looking at it, meaning it could be coming from the same factory there, just not marketed as such. And it was black as well. It had a good spray job, but it wasn't technically a spray job from my understanding. It was a proper coating, which is thermally effective as well. Let's put on some DMCA free music, eh? See how we go. Do you notice if I didn't have all this work ahead of me, it probably would have been a wise idea to play a video game, but that's the thing. I think even if I streamed, I'd be just chatting streams in my downtime. I'm overplaying video games except for the purpose of assessing the performance of cards on a comparison level. Again, the difference is production value, and I hate spreadsheets. I hate Excel in that. I mean, not Excel necessarily, but then charting things and things like that. I used to do it when I was younger, and when I was younger, it's like 20 years ago plus. I'm out of touch, I'm out of date, I'm out of practice. It takes a long time to do it properly, perfectly, make it look nice, flush and everything. And yeah, so to do that sort of aspect, it's going to look really shonky at the beginning if I'm trying to produce the content quickly. And if I take too long to produce it, it might just be too outdated. But I know if it's right or wrong instantaneously. Maybe my niche will be to critique the professionals and keep them in line where necessary. Maybe that'll generate, through controversy itself, the right amount of viewers, and that'll allow myself to be a bit more freer in form and reliance of anybody in that sense, and fund each video itself. What that requires essentially in a business structure is the ability to produce a video that has 50,000 views, but also with 1,000 subscribers and over 4,000 hours of footage watched in an annual year. I believe that will allow you to then be monetizing your things. From then on, from after doing all that work, that's when you get the privilege of monetization, and your videos then have to be of a caliber that has over 50,000 before you essentially receive a check of approximately $500 from YouTube, from my understanding. I hope that's US, by the way. It makes sense, because if you spend $500 on an item, I mean, if you spend 2 to 3 days working and on a video as a small person, and you spend $100 or $200 of your own money, and you manage to get 50,000 views, that will be a starting out person now classified on YouTube, surprisingly. Then you only break even. So you're breaking even. So you need to get 100,000 views to actually justify what would technically be almost a week's worth of work. So that means you're essentially in Australia under minimum pay as well still. So you need approximately 150,000 views per video to be able to make something, and 200,000 will justify all the expertise in that placed in if you are actually right and concise and diligent and smart and providing the in-depth proper information that I want to be perceived to be able to do, and have viewership come to me, rather than always critique other people for the wrong stuff that they do. You know what I mean? But you need a follower base, and it's impossible to get it. It's impossible to get it. I even had someone from a rival company to YouTube suggest that I got vetted. So as a content creator, they suggested I work on a follower account rather than allow you to start on that platform as a new content creator. They also suggested that perhaps I follow them on their socials as well, just to rub it in. But how you get new stuff is, I don't want to do it the way videos on YouTube suggest, where they talk about do a music channel and have it running 24/7 live, or they suggest things like, to the degree that eventually someone's like, or get some bots, or whatever it might be. This is the only DCMA song I have that has lyrics to it. Turn the bass up a bit. Yeah, I'll get to work and I'm talking to you. Yikes, an hour and a half. Jeez, that's 90 minutes. That coffee was good. I'll tell you what, I'd like to get another coffee and continue on, but I've already gone. I do come prepared. But not prepared to not work. I was I was actually thinking maybe I would do a GoFundMe page thing and be like, all I want and need and explain my scenario is you guys just to follow me and subscribe to my channel. I need 1,000 subscribers. That's all I require. Let me work out and do the rest. It's in relation to this and that. And yeah, or the other option was if I get into that retail store, I know I'll be a diligent employee enough, even on a part-time basis or whatever it might be, to be able to, and also responsible enough to be able to not stuff items up and bring them back in the same state, and that, for content creation as well. Because I realized that with all of this, I will be able to drive, have customers as well. With customers, I can create again PC builds and that, without sponsorship, that is. But through that sort of motivation, through that sort of it all can work for you if you let it, and all work in unison. In some way, shape or form, organic growth can occur if you push it, but organic growth to occur, you still need the algorithm to favor you in some way. In some way, you have to get lucky as well, or you will never get started. And that's sort of where I'm at, where I'm very, very dismayed also, because I'm pushing for it. Because imagine if had I even had the latest and greatest hardware available, and I invested a lot of money into this in that regards, it's still essentially be falling on deaf ears. And I'll be broke, and my next video I couldn't afford to get another 3080 if they want to stop to review, you know what I mean? So yeah, hopefully something will fall my way and my passion, my dream can sort of flourish, and I can be very, very happy as well, because with things going your way in life in general, I'm pretty round a fella. It will be a lot more energetic to be around me, because I won't be as subdued as I am. And yeah, I'll get excited. I'm excited like Big Kev can be as well. If you ever watched Big Kev, you type in Big Kev from Australia or something, he might even be on a YouTube ad somewhere there. It was quite a character with his shirt and whatnot and his cleaning products. Okay, so picture wise, I can't. I have to do them all in the unison. Few items I've got. The compact restored, perfect. Military grade. We've got a amp over here, which is a kicker amp. I believe Rockford or something was an American brand, which I had certain clients from as well. But kicker, I don't know if it's American or Australian in that sense. Very popular in Australia. 4-channel amp with a lot of high grade wiring that the wiring itself on its own would cost you approximately $100. So as part of the package, these amps and quality in Australia go for between $250 to $350, $400. It's just a small one depending on the style you get. So I've gotten to the degree that I've got everything I need ready if I was to half the price, let alone get it for top dollar or be smart and have it at a smart level. So some items I'm really reluctant to sell, other items I'm not, but I've got no other option except that to essentially get the equivalent PC or the 3900 XT up and running within the next week and a half, because I've already got hours and hours of footage and content which is ready for just my novice ability to be able to really start to enjoy the editing and rendering process as well. As you become more proficient, the chore, which is what it seems like, becomes a lot more, I don't know, your neck doesn't hurt as much anymore. You know what I mean? Like, surprisingly. The funny part was Linus Sebastian from LTT was doing, I believe, a Intel sponsored thingo. Again, someone who doesn't even need it, getting $5,000 worth of products to do a video on how, if I got $5,000 worth of products to do a video on, you know how ecstatic and entertaining it'd be, at the very least, you know, all these gadgetry and that. But on a side note, I come back to that, it was one of his editors, and it's like he wasted his money, clickbait sort of stuff, but he actually got all this stuff, and I'm like, you know what? It's not a waste of money, because I suddenly started spending, you know, days on end editing after days of footage, and you get really stiff, you know what I mean? That's like, I'm over computers and like this, always hunched and holding myself with a gut now, which I'm not used to, and the core strength I didn't have, and there's a little bit of back pain on them, you know, moving 20 kilo computers around monstrous machines and things, and that is more painful than this, you know. I've done labor work in the past as well, and it's a different form of pain. You have to be very focused as well to be able to cut and then be able to do this, and then even at special effects, another level that I will get to, you know what I mean? Also, it's an unconventional approach that everything I do is through, at the moment, almost a borderline open source software, free software. The ability to have all functionality doesn't exist. If you want the same result, then you have to do an extra 3 or 4 or 5 additional steps that you have to learn, and it takes time, and then you have to loop it in and then grab it. You can't always extract this file and put it there because of the fact that the file format itself requires some form of licensing agreement, you know what I mean? And the open source software can't utilize that, so they'll work on, you know, all this stuff. It's all new stuff for me as well, which I have to learn to deal with, and that. And it's a shame I don't have a mate that's interested in the same stuff and we could be a team, because he, on the other hand, does the opposite end of the things, and he's into the software aspect of things. I'm not a slouch in any software in that regards, mind you, but to effectively use certain pieces of software, you know, makes you become an expert in its right mind because it's that in depth and to use it effectively and whatnot, you know. So for example, using LTT again, I believe there's a fellow around there who's the macro king, and he's got the keyboard set up and whatnot, and you see how efficient he is to the degree that to go to macro and do this on this keyboard takes me 1 point something seconds, but to just go to the next keyboard takes me 1 second, and as a result doing this many times over this period, and he's got it to a fine art, you know what I mean? And that's how efficient he's become, and that's just through writing his own, you know. So scripting is another thing that I'm not strong on. I can understand the value in the industry and appreciate it. It's not me though. Python, so I'm one of those deadbeats, you know what I mean? Those people that dropped out of, dropped out of college because I couldn't handle it. CTWT, Python and shit, I don't know. It's just not me and shit. Anyway, yeah, so got a couple of it's Asus H110ME board. I'd probably not ask more than $40 Australian for it. Can run, I believe, a 7.6 gen processor Intel. So any maybe even like only $30 realistically in this climate. I've got a couple of those in that sense. But system builders, so someone like me that as well in that sense, if I had a bit more time, I would take these items, grab a couple of other items and flip the PC as well, but produce a good PC and a good system for the price, not overprice and put RGB and make it seem like it's the greatest thing in the world. I'm honest, okay, maybe too honest at times. But I don't have the time, so I have to be the dude that provides certain of those aspects, be the dude that provides some retro and sell it to the right people quicker rather than sooner and wait on eBay and get the price I need, or the price I would prefer to have if I was to part it with it. Got an intermediate system which will be sent as a combo, which is an X58 board. I have 18 gigabytes of RAM and they'll be ready to roll with. That can be proficient for entry-level gaming with a budget-oriented gaming with at least a 4 gigabyte card of any sort, providing it's at least got GDDR5 memory. It'll be fine. Get you 60 frames plus on Fortnite on 1080p, you know, at the very least. You know, CSGO on the other hand, a potato could play, you know what I mean? Valorant, definitely. I mean, this on the other hand, PC over here, FX83 chip, professionally overclocked to, I might dial it down to 4.6, but it's got cooling capacity in it that it's running at 4.8 gigahertz without breaking a sweat. Very rarely run over the years. Plenty of juice left in the kitty. This could go to a collection person as a example of a chip, but it could also go as a budget orientated system. Again, I'm going to sell this as a budget oriented system that just requires a GPU with a base GPU in it, which will be a 1 gigabyte DDR5 card. So unfortunately it will still play Valorant and everything, but be bottlenecked by the GPU itself. It's the best I can do because I don't have a spare GPU. My spare GPU is a 1050 Ti, surprisingly, out of all things, and I need to keep that for my secondary PC up until the stage that I'm in position to get a 3000 series card and replace my main rig now, essentially one gaming rig, with a new GPU. That's all been on the back burner because of prices and whatnot, inflation and whatever. We won't talk about that today. It could be a topic in itself that I can dissect for you all. So how much I'm going to ask, because of the componentry, if someone was to break this system down for parts and sell them off themselves, I can be realistic, and everything in here that isn't here, because there's an SSD for optimization as well, Samsung 860 Evo. There's a new cooler in it that's worth $130. If broken down and everything, I'd probably say between $300 to $500 in this climate. I'm hoping for the more rather than less. Prices exactly won't be figured out until I'm writing it up and double checking everything. And then I'll do a whole notepad or WordPad of everything so that I can just copy and paste everything sequentially into then uploading territory. So that's how I work, and that's how I like to work nowadays, rather than stop start. Hence why I haven't started yet, because I'm probably not going to stop. Plus it was way too early in the morning I got up, frankly. On the other hand, I've got a Naga mouse still in the box. At least $50, definitely more, you know what I mean? I've got Virtuoso RGB wireless headphones. I got myself, sometimes I double up on tech if I've got the luxury, because I know the item's going to be good enough that by the time I need to replace that item, I'll wish I had another one of those available. These headphones so good that yes, that was the case. The difference is the headphones I replaced, for example, with the Asus Strix, a bit unconventional the colouring. These headphones, on the other hand, were half the price of the Virtuoso, have a better mic, or a mic of the same caliber, and sound quality in virtual surround sound that is just as effective with better noise cancellation. They're very heavy, but they're more comfy for longer term use, especially with the pressure of those ones which I have from my glasses that push them down a little bit. If I had the option again, I would have bought two of these and it would have cost one of those. But nowadays, in this market, a few years later, to get something of this caliber in quality wise to the sound and that, you require to spend that amount of money now. That's how it works. So I got two of them, but now I'm desperate. So I can't sit on something that's not going to get used. How much am I going to sell it for though? Because of the fact that this already had advertised and just treading water, I spent $370 Australian for this, and that was the best price you can get. I'm asking $275 and I've got no bloody takers. $100 less, brand new, unused, still got the peels on it. Specify that it's just using an unboxing video, showing that I've got a couple of them to prove that this is an additional pair, and I've still had no takers for 33% less than, or at the best, or about 30% less than the asking price new, which is market value for what you'd expect to get a secondhand product sold for anyway. So I haven't had people negotiating on marketplace. Generally they're very feverish and they drop really low sums just to tread water, just to see if they can get stuff for cheap. No harm in bothering people like that, except, you know, you feel like telling people to fuck off, frankly. So that definitely, you know. So with that, and this, then I've got, and this, we could get with competitive pricing already almost close to $1,000 Australian. Then I've got some power supplies for system builders, 700 watt CoolerMaster, 720 watt Verava. That Verava I'm only going to sell for $20. Really? 720 watt? Yeah, exactly. Until I verify, unless it's from a company that, again, like that cooler that Jay from J2 Cents reviewed recently. Feels like it's from a Noctua brand. Unless I get a verification that's from that factory that say Corsair makes all their shit and it's based on the same thing, I don't trust it as much. I'll only charge that much for it, and some dodgy fucker will use it if it's perceived to be bad anyway, build it, probably put it in the system and charge that person an arm and leg and say it's got a 720 watts power supply when they don't know the difference, you know what I mean, take advantage. I'm only going to ask $20-$30 to get it sold like that, okay? On the other hand, 700 watt CoolerMaster, probably about $50 or $60, even though I'd want $75 Australian for it. Another 430 watt Antec power supply, bronze rated, probably about 40 or 30, and then another 460 watt CoolerMaster power supply, maybe $5 or $10 more than the Antec one in that regards. All borderline brand new, some of them even, or hardly ever used. You can tell just, this is bad camera, bad lighting in the room currently, but you know what I mean? Like, it's clicky. It's very clicky. So easily another 100 build there, being very conservative and price effective in the marketplace currently without even doing research. So this is why I want to get this stuff up as soon as possible and done, because it's going to take me. When I sell items, I'm very pedantic. I give all of the information, specs, model numbers, that because people on marketplace still waste your time. They don't look at the description, they just ask you if it's interested. I put in a disclaimer at the bottom saying if the item's still listed, then it's still available. Only genuine inquiries, things like that, you know, to minimize the fact that when I sell items, I generally get about 2,000 to 3,000 views on each item, because it's the item that everyone's going for at the right price with no bullshit and looks great, you know what I mean? So I'm at the top of the list every single time. When I post, generally speaking, I post at the right time of the week, at the right time of the day, so that it elevates you in the marketplace at that specific hour that people will be looking for their stuff before they're jumping on and buying it, you know what I mean? So that's going to, yeah, anyway, I lost my train of thought, sorry. Here we've got an old server power supply. Again, this is more niche. I won't ask more than $20 to $50 for this as well, but just having it listed and that with the model, someone specifically could use it also. It's got a 26 pin as well. Could use it for maybe even maybe like a custom build, because it's very thin, into something odd, you know what I mean, or whatever. So I've had people, for example, get I believe they're G5 Apple cases, very iconic cases, and I had a case like that, and they wanted to use it for a custom ATX build or something, you know what I mean. So I sold that case for $30. It's probably worth more in metal than it was, you know, it's 20 kilos of aluminium, for God's sake, or 25 kilos. So then we've got a couple of old PCI generated Wi-Fi cards, which again will enable any mediocre builder to be able to, for $10, $15 out of Wi-Fi to the build and make it look pristine. I know how people operate. Depending on how they word their stuff, it can seem with neglecting information. Like they'll say they've got 16 gigabytes of RAM, blah blah blah, but they won't say it's DDR3 instead of DDR4, blah blah blah. And you have novices who just think it's on a comparison level. It's an i7. I want an i7, you know, but the i7's like 4th generation or something. You know what I mean? And they'll ask as much, or as close to, as the new. You know what I mean? Like this is what I'm seeing. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Okay, it's disgusting. You talk about shonky mechanics. What about shonky IT specialists? You know what I mean? Give the industry a bad name. I understand business and profiteering, but there is also essentially a set amount of greed, you know, as well, and negativity that exists. So I'm realistic. So again, that in comparison, say with this board here, be another $60, $70 in total. This is a basic board that does DDR3 RAM, but it's only got 2 modules for it, but you can do dual channel. And then it's a combination of stuff. This was an old streaming board that a friend of mine gave me as well. But again, this is only like a 775 socket chip, but you can get a 4-core in there, which potentially you could overclock ever so slightly. I had one, for example, which I had stable at about 3.8 gigahertz or something on all cores back then, and I sold the system with I believe a GT at the time it was still viable. I think it was a GTX 650 Ti, 2 gigabyte. And I think I only sold it with Windows 10 installed, operational, optimized, everything, as well as 3 terabytes of hard drive set up in RAID 0 fashion. So I was borderline on the levels of as close to a read and write speed sequentially of an SSD, and completely optimized with obviously support available. Only about $300 to a fella in Australia. At that time, was very cheap, where someone else could really take advantage of that person, essentially. You know what I mean? So apart from that, I've got this as well, which is an old iMac I salvaged. Doesn't boot. I'm not proficient in Apple, but it's got the head of, I don't know if it's called deaf or, you know, and it means that all you need to do is you can actually get into it, and it means, I think the hard disk is being wiped or something, so an operating system that's been installed. But people use this for other things as well, and it's very elegant and timeless, depending on what you use it for. Maybe even a tissue box, I don't know. But I could probably get about $50 for one of these at the very least. Again, in a different market on eBay, at some stage they'll be valued more and whatnot. So another half a bill. So then we've got an i5. It's only 2000 series, but again, for a system builder, I could ask, realistically, I wouldn't want to ask more than $30 for it. But oh yeah, that system that over there's got an i7 in as well, that X58. Probably, like, I don't want to sell any of this because I need this. I was meant to do my first LNT overclocking with the 775 socketed chips I've got over there. Bin them all, get the best one, get 2 cores or 1 core up to the most highest rate I could get. Never know, if I did it right, I could take a 775 socketed chip a CPU to a world record standard, and I wouldn't be aware of it until I look that up and see that this is where the world records are regarding frequency and range for those socketed chips at one stage of life, and I'm world class based upon what was available back then, probably because of new technology today, you know what I mean? Implemented with older techniques, older technology and newer techniques and whatnot. But to get the experience and get the know-how, and also partially because it's be a passion of mine in that sense, and the problem is I can't do that with a Kingpin card or anything just yet, and it wouldn't be fair to start on something like that as well when there's all this stuff which is going to waste, you know what I mean? And the pedigree nature of things, essentially you're on the same level, it's the same concepts, it's the same techniques, it's just a little bit more picturesque in the FE rather than the BIOS itself, for example, you know what I mean? Then basic things like from there, there's a debate. I've got a couple of BMX bikes, which are just frames, but there's a Kurokawa, which in today's market I could probably only get about $200-300 for. It's an option. It's an option. Kurohara, sorry, but not an option I want to take. Apart from that, there's 3 motherboards here. Most like best pedigree motherboard, or one of, from back in the day that Silent Pipe was doing. Say, look at all that copper. Hold on. Like, look at all that copper. Yikes, this one needs a polish though. But it's all these work for 775 socketed chips as well and stuff. But to a collector, to a rejuvenator, even to a metal collector, for God's sake, this one would be worth its weight when I'd be only asking $20 to $30 for it, depending on how much other stuff I'm handling to them, if you know what I mean. I'll give away DDR2 RAM with that to get $40 in total with a 775 chip as well. You never know. On the other hand, sort of the pedigree RAM from back in the days, which is again DDR2, I'll probably want the same amount for this than that, because I know someone will make use of this for those type of rings. You got people like, for example, a dude who's hardcore overclocking. He likes doing RAM overclocking. I'd love to do RAM overclocking as well, because it's a cheap form of overclocking. You can, each week you can get yourself and use some new modules and see how they perform, see how they operate, get, you know what I mean, and see what you can get out of them before you're aware of what bins and whatnot are good and what. So I've got 2 of those. This is another variant of that. It's got some Hyper 6 DDR2 RAM that actually operates extremely well as well. It overclocks really well for the RAM. This RAM I've had for a few years as well. Been collecting dust for a long time. But the odd thing is that these boards, regardless of how they operate, okay, I've been smelling the most odd things, burning, but not from our guy, thank God, because of, yeah, thank God. But I've been smelling like burning. I mean, I also smelled the tip for the first time in over a year, so somehow they had to have not been processing their stuff. It's not close, and it had to have wafted. Like, I don't know what it was, but and then I smelled shit as well. And I thought, like, did a cat just take a dump out of my window or something? But I had 3 scents. Like, maybe I'm developing cancer, I don't know. Then I've got some basic speakers in this day and age. When if you were to take off this, they would actually look very pretty. They're old. They're produced by a company in Japan called Technics. But if you're after 100-watt speakers, Technics speakers, generally speaking, are quite decent and known if you know your stuff. And it doesn't matter how old they are, because if you're after high fidelity, old school sound that's not digital, it doesn't make a difference. You're after quality. For the pair, maybe $60, $50 again. Not a half bill. Very competitive prices, so that I can get the stuff within the next week and a half, along with what is essentially, because technically because of COVID and that I'm unemployed, to be brutally honest, hence the why I throw myself into something else so feverishly. Get my dole check essentially, or my benefit check, tie that in with a little bit extra money from there at the same time, and be in a position to, on a worst case scenario, if I have to, I won't be able to afford to get what was in Australia an $850 chip at the time or equivalent. So I'll tell you what I'm going to get. Rocket Lake's around the corner. I would never advise it to someone if I was being really serious and or choosing my words carefully as an industry partaker rather than a sidestepper. But I'm going to get a 10th gen i9 because it's about $150 less than the CPU. Productivity wise, 10 cores, 20 threads, it's good enough for what I do. Frequency wise, on the other hand, monstrous. 1200 socket, I already did my research because I was a little bit out, like I just realized that the cooler worked fine, but what I would like to have enough for, I've got the RAM for it. I've got the case for it, which I have to transplant the current PC, which is the older gaming PC in that regards, to my secondary PC for streaming purposes. I always need two PCs for working. That's how I am nowadays. I definitely need two, and I make the most of both of them. They work in unison, they work well, they're always connected up and shit. But I built a system in my head as a hypothetical, and I'm going to undervolt it. It's going to be a 10-year system for minimal amount of costs. Problem is still the graphics card, because after all of this I realized if I'd done this I could have got the graphics card at the time when the graphics cards were still available for a reasonable price. But I didn't want to do that for that, and I had wishful thinking. No one realized the blowout completely like this, you know what I mean? At the time I had enough for a Founders, I did my research, I had enough for a Founders Edition 3080. Unfortunately in Australia, we at one stage got notice that just beforehand that you're not going to get them, by the way, in Australia. And then they changed their mind and sent 1,000 over to one supplier, M-Wave, that raffled them off a day after the ABIs became available. Didn't even go to notice that the raffle, you were unsuccessful. Thank you for your email. We're going to send you all this other marketing material from now on as well. So I missed out, and just 2 weeks later they're already double the price and unavailable, the Founders Edition. On the other hand, I had done my research and everyone was saying AIBs. I already knew the Founders Edition was off the reference model itself as well, and done very, very decently by NVIDIA. So I for the purpose of my build with a H500M case, was thinking, elegantly speaking, it would contour it perfectly. But coming back to my build per se, without the graphics card, I'll probably then put the 2070 into that as a stopgap, and the 1050 into the streaming PC, because I'll still need to have that with a PC. It'll be a downgrade for that Intel i7, but the i9 on the other hand, my thing in the works, which I'm trying to keep, I would hate to all of a sudden get a video that blows out to 150,000, all Australian people watching it, so that they buy the shit out of the marketplace from me under my feet just before I'm about to get it. But I'm definitely going to get a Peltier cooler as well. And there's only two available, which only work with the 1200 at the moment, and that's software locked, I believe, not obviously socket locked. The EK one I wanted to get, I didn't realize it goes to an open loop, it goes to your open loop attachment, so that puts me out of the price range, but I could have the $600 odd then with this figured out with that, to get the CoolerMaster one, and that's got a 360mm rad attached to it, and I'm hoping that the quality is just as good, because the E-Play block looks really nice, and I'm assuming for the same price of just that without the rad and everything else attached, maybe they've implemented the technology in a more effective manner as well. It could be the same technology with the CoolerMaster, but I'm hoping that the CoolerMaster is still sufficient enough that one day when I'm ready and the computer's nearing its end of its life, I'll take it up to 5.6 or 5.8 gigahertz, okay, and it'll be competing. But before it is, I'm gonna undervolt the fuck out of it and have it running at 5.1 at least on all cores. Hopefully, cross my fingers, the chip's nice at under a volt or something, so it's not ever gonna break a sweat, and that'll prolong its life further still, in theory, and that system optimized in that regards, in my eyes, was a great way to do that, where if I get myself in that position, I can then patiently wait if the worst case scenario occurs with the AMD chip to take a month or 3 months to eventually get something back, and by then I'll be able to keep the motherboard and sell off the chip instantaneously for about 75% of the value of it to begin with, the purchase price. Maybe even keep it if I'm lucky, you know what I mean? If not, the option is to actually sell the system then, but there's a certain amount of stuff as a PC technician that I also require that's new age for testing purposes. Once everything works out, and on a side note, I've got customers coming to me, then what I will need is that testing equipment, you know what I mean? There's only so much that I can guarantee that it's this and that without actually checking it as well, but I can isolate the stuff to know it. That's why, unfortunately, for example, I know for a fact definitively that that chip's gone without any other form of testing equipment regardless, because the troubleshooting process I went through to establish that with everything and how it goes, and that there's the off chance, like there's like a 1% chance that it's something else in that sense, and there's like a 10% chance that that sector in the motherboard itself has failed and that's why it's not reading it, but the rest of it is the chip. And chip integrity speaking, I've looked at, it passes the muster for claim to be warranted. Okay, so I'm gonna take high-res photos of everything before I take it into the store, see hopefully that the store works something out, because they're going to be aware that you're not going to get this chip, one, because they don't have a stock, let alone that, let alone what's going to happen with the replacement. Are you going to get that from them? Doubtful, when no one can get it anyway. So can you guys honor the agreement and deal with the credit from AMD instead for the purchase or something? Because as a retail outlet, in the sense they have a better establishment with the claims process, they have a specific claims department they can pawn it off to if they can. And I know for a fact that they've got that in stock ready to roll with, okay? So that's why that option has presented myself, and I got very excited with it as an alternative. Even though I love this system to begin with, this system was dope as hell, okay? And yeah, you know what I mean? I can make the best out of a lot of things, and the way I am is, I guess I'm a fanboy for both. We'll just leave it at that for now, until I'm ready to diverge more if need be. Maybe if I need the publicity and something's picking up, I'll get a little controversial and pull it back when I'm set, because I do have my agenda as well, and I don't want to be popular as a result of uneducated people especially, who are trying to get an education, just dislike my content because of the content providers they like. They don't realize they're more entertained rather than educated, yet at least. You know, this is a great DMCA track. It's part of some of my intro. There's a certain sector, I believe, in this song that's really good as well. But just as a background thing, it's pretty decent. Anyway, I promise that's enough talking now. No one's writing anything in chat at the moment, so look, if you're just chilling back and enjoying the I don't know, you might be enjoying the whispers or the ASMR, then understand, hit the like button, smash it in fact, maybe not for this but some of my other videos. Hit the subscribe button, follow and or like, share. Appreciate all the help, guys. Any support warranted is a free way of supporting me, and just motivates me to produce content of a better, higher caliber for you all, specifically for you, my viewers, in that sense. So yeah, thank you. Okay. I'm going to, it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm going to have a short 5-minute break, guys. And then I'm going to definitely have to do some work, unfortunately. Be right back. Alrighty, is the mic on? It is. Sometimes I may put myself in a position where I'll talk for half an hour and I notice the mic isn't on, but because of a lack of viewers there's no recognition of it, and I'm like, okay, that's a great stream that's just going to be floating out there, you know, and then it's like instantly delete, and you just think maybe you just leave half the stuff. What I like about, just on a side note, what I like about Facebook, video applications is something that YouTube could take a note of, and that's that caption wise, you can, if you're disciplined enough, you can do a little trick if you want to be lazy. You can, and you can dictate your stuff anyway, but you can, on live streams, then if you've had some massive great port patterns and processes and wish that had been recorded or in some way, shape or form, you want to reword it and use it for, say, a news article or something like that, or a script. Facebook, as soon as you upload, it will generate, especially if your English is clear enough, it will generate an SRT/caption, which you can not only review, it'll give you an accuracy rating, although it's odd unless you review it how accurate it is, but it's pretty decent. Facebook understands me better than YouTube does at times when I look at the captions. It sounds like I'm talking, if you're deaf, I think I say the word ISIS, Islam and all that sort of stuff, and terrorists in the amount of time of a paragraph, when I never set those words or the topic material at hand, you know what I mean? It's weird. But Facebook seems very accurate, but also you take that file and you can download it, and obviously if you can convert it to a text document, you've got everything that's said scripted in an instant heartbeat, borderline to a degree that if you're restrained and educated in the way you talk, I'm not that way just yet, but I know after a little bit of time, maybe a month more or so, I will be, perhaps more like monotonous in a way, shape or form, like say Steve Burke is, and I can bother than doing those articles and newsworthy stuff for, say, because as a one-man gang, it's very difficult to get everything done and get traction in this day and age unless you were there at the beginning. But I can get those news articles done as well on the topic at hand. All I have to do is edit out all the ums, buts and bins and just do a bit of, you know, rather than write it up fresh, you know. So that's something I realized just working outside the box, that I can work on and utilize if I want to do some in-depth analysis sort of speeches, which then can be referenced as material one at the base again for the education area, which is not compulsory of the Facebook page itself, which I mentioned I am, I guess, the co-founder of, but also for because YouTube hasn't got the luxury, and because I haven't even bothered doing a template for the free one. I've got a Facebook website which is a sister website to the YouTube one, where now I just link the videos to YouTube, but I then as a result want to fill it up with some material at hand, be it at least snippets of certain things, like regarding one of the most recent was RAM and how it applies to Infinity Fabric and whatnot, and just a slight more educated way and approach to explain it to someone so that off the bat they understand that this is why you want to get between 3600 megahertz and 4000, and ideally have it at about 3800 megahertz on current CPUs and whatnot. And then also, if I talked about the topic for an hour and a half, you borderline realise that you wrote a paper on it and you just can't be bothered with writing it, right? So that gives you the luxury of all you have to do is edit that paper, and you'd have to proofread and edit that stuff anyway a few times if it's long enough. So yeah, then hit publish. Again, that's another way to get myself out there. I'd like to get a DSLR camera, be it secondhand. The oldest DSLR camera that I can hook up to the PC successfully would give me better clarity than the $300 I spent on a webcam to get what is essentially a 4K webcam, never looking as pristine as it should be. I could have taken that $300. So I'm not always as educated with everything as well. I haven't got the luxury, but I try to be. I could have taken that $300 and applied it to my next phone upgrade and gotten the better phone, like a Samsung 21 Ultra. But to connect that up to the computer, again, there's sometimes inhibitors in the way to do it effectively and utilize it. Also, in this day and age, if you've got a phone, but by then I'd have two phones with giving me a pretty decent image, but I'm thinking at the beginning, depending on how I am, everything I have would be reinvested back into growth as well, organic growth hopefully, but reinvested as well back into the streams, into the video content in some way, shape or form, with enough just left over just to survive until there's a level coming from me that I'm happy with the production costs, not by being a hypocrite, but by then being in a position where there's no debate, because it seems like on a statistical level, likes and dislike ratios by certain videos, I'm looking at the analytics because I see them myself. There's about 7 to 10% people who bother from the views on these videos to press and bother pressing the up or down vote, which is the like button or dislike for the video at all. If I took all my view counts and I said, well, 7% of those people are going to upvote and downvote that, it's not the case. It's not the case, unfortunately. I don't even have any interaction with my views, and I'm wondering if it's because the first thing that comes out of my mouth is not good enough, or because they dismiss it instantly because it's not shiny. You get me? Shiny. And that's why I want to eliminate all equations out of the mix and see what I'm at on that level playing field. I need better acting skills and stuff like that as well. But we all have strengths and weaknesses, and if you're into a conversation at heart, and depending on if I've got the right voice active or whatever it is, there's a chance that I can hold your interest in a topic at hand for that longer period of time. And sometimes I have people telling me, you need to do what everyone else wants, and then I have other people telling me you need to do what no one else is doing, and then I have other people telling me you should do 10-minute videos, yet I'm watching stuff myself that goes for an hour, 2 hours, and they're successful enough and have to 75 to 150,000 views within a few days of doing something that long, which is fine. But I'm trying to do it all just to see what will crack that algorithm for me, and how on earth in this day and age do you at all manage? You have to literally, I don't want to seem like I'm sucking up someone's ass, but how do I'm not a child, I can't be like a fanboy and be picked up as a youngster, but I'll bring other things into the mix. I think I could be an asset to any group in that sense, but how do you get, all I can see is a hand-me-down approach, a pass-the-baton approach, and like if I'm not vetted and people like me in some way, shape or form, there's no way you can work. I've seen also Facebook has changed their approach that you can't even start group pages unless it's done by your own account, which means you can't start group. But I managed to do a workaround. I don't do scripting, I don't do Python, I didn't hack Facebook. I went through the back door, and in my account I still managed to start up a page through Robbi Tek itself, which means I'm affiliated, so I can, in theory, if I had 60,000 people in that group, then start to, not by spamming, but promote myself, because I'd be an admin, I'd be advocate there as well, promote myself into another level where I'd say there's content, or provide educational videos which are very restrained in the sector / there's content, and then slip it in that there's YouTube as well. What happened was I did one post in a 60,000 thing where they allowed me to do it. I got 6,000 plus engagement with that post. Okay, I haven't got more than 1,500 engagement with another 18 videos, let alone a few posts. Do you get me? On Facebook regarding organic growth, instantaneously like that. Okay, and it's very difficult to do that now as well, because the business structure and models that are associated with these companies and how they do it, they think everything you do online is now a business related thing. Okay, you know, I literally went out of my way to say computer and something website. When I did, luckily I took off news and something, because in Australia, you know, but because I started a company called Astral Tech Computers, for example, and I started off saying it was for a business, and from a business perspective, all that Facebook would do would want to boost your shit, and you pay them, and that's all that I saw, and it was very infuriating. Then I thought, well, why don't I just promote myself and provide content for people as a website base for around computers and IT related stuff, but it's not a business. I didn't choose the business structure thing, and it still wants to, it still keeps on saying that I'm, you know what I mean? Like, because their modeling is changing in that period of time, and they're just like, yeah. And I'm starting to wonder, is it like, you can't, like, the amount it costs to get 1,000 people over the next 5 days for $25, if that's a good one, okay? I got 6,000 traction for the thing. I got how many followers out of that? 2 or 3. That business model doesn't fly, even regarding advertising and that. I do better delivering 5,000 pamphlets myself, which is something, on the other hand, I'm going to do as soon as Corona's died down again, and I can get to the unemployment agency. I got an agreement that they're going to let me use their printer. I've got some flyers, and I'll strategically letterbox drop those about I'll use my own paper, I'll use their ink, I'll do 5,000, I've got I think about 2,000 pages. I do it on a half, so I have about 4,000 flyers or 5,000 flyers, black and white, minimalist ink, but just enough to name drop myself and the service I can provide in the area. If that works, when they come, I'll give them an option of paying less for an additional day where I'll be making footage of it for content as well. So ways to drive that, and ways to drive work as well, and ways to get customers. I'm trying everything at the same time. It's very difficult. I know my shit, people. And yeah, so keeping that all in mind, I realised I'm not wearing my suit and pants. Yikes. Luckily I've got short shorts on because that might be technically look, technically I don't think you can wear short shorts on Twitch, and I still got some pair of jogging shorts from back in the day when I was an athlete at school, which I like to wear during summer because they've got a cut in the side here as well, and they're completely like floppy loose / very short and very comfy and breathable, you know. Breathable to the degree that you probably want to make sure that you're, I don't know, you just don't want to be, you know those old school movies where the comedies where like a sack comes out or something. Okay, I'm going to be realistic here, guys. I feel the need to talk right now, which means at the 2 hours and 36 mark, either we'll do something serious and have a 15-minute discussion on a specific topic that I'll leave you with. But to be honest, I've left you with enough randomized stuff today in my slow fall pattern that there's enough to ponder about me, about yourselves, about the IT industry and the sectors and what's going on and how to see. There's content that's available. Look, if you've been here, if you've listened to this, I appreciate all the support that's been granted. Your viewership alone is support for me. But hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for more content from Robbi Tek. And again, to everyone, thank you. I'm going to leave it at that today. I will then at least get the stuff done, because if I don't go today, I have to go tomorrow. I can't leave it any longer than that regarding this chip, to find out what's going on and how I'm going to be dealt with. And cross my fingers for me. I even had the slight idea on a side note to end up, I saw people on stuff like Kickstarter and that asking for money so they could become streamers for Call of Duty. They all had, you know, and they got them, and I'm like, shit, I can't do that. I just can't bring myself to do it, regardless of how maybe even poetically I could articulate myself and show that it would be more worth it than just playing video games. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm of the caliber to the level that when it comes to a content provider, I need someone to be able to produce something a little bit different, maybe a Q&A about the video game specifically at some time, maybe something else. As a fellow that's gotten some bad PR recently, some bad publicity, not Dr. Disrespect, but it's a small fellow called Say No to Rage. He's on YouTube now, but he just got his count banned, I believe, on the game he mainly plays. He provides content and plays games all day at the same time, but the content he provides is a little bit of a different caliber, and that's at the very least the type of streamers I look at regarding gaming. Unless they're performance-driven perfection, I'm sick or tired of hearing a streamer blame a hacker for them dying when they clearly wasn't a hacker, you know what I mean? So yeah, peace out, peeps. My name is Robbi Astral, and this has been Robbi Tek in general, and the download and what's going on at the moment. Yo, bye.